We stand on the edge of profound change. To meet the demands of a green transition, we need collective wisdom, diverse voices, and bold ideas. Collaboration is the key to unlocking our sustainable future. Together, we can overcome the challenges ahead and seize the opportunities that will define the green economy.
Very good to meet you all this morning. My name is RANAWAKE. I'm a venture partner at the Conduit. I spend my time investing in SMEs and also helping SMEs fundraise in the climate tech and clean tech space. So delighted to be invited to moderate here at this very topical session focusing on SMEs. And I'm joined by my wonderful all-female panel. I would love each of them to give a relatively short introduction of who you are and why you're here.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. I'm Eva DIMITRIADIS. I'm the managing partner of Conduit Connect, so home team. I suppose we are the dating agency. So Conduit Connect was founded at the same time as the Conduit, and we exist to help drive capital into much needed impact innovation. In 2021, we set up the Conduit EIS Impact Fund, and we'll talk a little bit about EIS today as one of the finance carrots. And we invest in climate education, healthcare, and inclusion. And climate represents about 60% of our portfolio. We've got about 24 investments. Yes, we'll talk a little bit about some of the innovation that we see. We work a lot with larger institutional investors, helping them to find interesting innovation. So looking forward to the discussion. I know there's lots of wood to chop, as we say.
Awesome. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Hannah Cool. I am Chief Operating Officer at an organisation called B4NZ, previously Bankers for Net Zero. We focus on policy advocacy, and our mission focused on how do we help capital flow to the real economy. And the real economy, a huge part of that is SMEs. Now, the gnarly issues in the market and creating the economic case for sustainability and sustainable change is what we do. We do parliamentary engagement, and part of that is hopefully going to form the basis of the discussion today. So very excited to be here.
Morning everybody. Hi, I'm SHEVAUN HAVILAND. I'm the Director General of the British Chambers of Commerce. For those of you who haven't come across the chambers, I'm sure you're all members of your local chamber, or you will be shortly. We represent the 52 chambers of the UK and the 79 and counting British chambers all around the world. So a truly global network. In the UK, our chambers represent over 60,000 businesses, 6 million employees, and our members are effectively representative of the UK economy. So startups and scale-ups, 80% SMEs, and then the largest businesses in the UK. And our job is to make the UK the best place to start, grow, and invest in a business. And we do that through working with supporting businesses, with government, with media, with commercial partners. And the green economy is one of our 5 big policy areas. So looking forward to talking about that today.
Hi, everyone. I was a little surprised to see that the room was going to be this full at this hour, considering that most of us are probably up till like 3 o'clock in the morning last night. I was. So AJAITA SHAH, I'm the founder CEO of Frontier Markets, but I'm also, what hat am I playing today? So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an investor, I'm an ecosystem enabler in the Global South. So today I'm hoping that the experience that I've had for the last 20 years working in Africa and in India, really trying to stimulate what we call, what is SMEs? What does it mean when we talk about Global South? What does it mean when we look at green economy and the system? In the work that I've done in the last 20 years, we've helped over 1 million families become transitioned into the green economy in a really big way. We've also created jobs to over 250,000 people. in the global south, and we start understanding what does it mean to invest. I loved Nigel, like you could have not been the better opener of this, looking at where do you spend your money and how do you spend your money in the right way. So at Frontier Markets and the work that I've done, we've done this in India, we've invested in companies across parts of Africa, and our main focus has been around how do we recognize the role that the masses play in terms of changing what climate can be when you look at incentivizing them in a different way and look at where jobs, markets, and systems work. So excited to be here. Amazing panel. I love when there's like a wannel in the right way. Opportune time. So we'll have a joke about that at the end. But yeah, thank you all for being here.
Fantastic. Thanks all for the introductions. So as we've heard about today, SMEs really form the backbone of economies, not just here in the UK, but around the world. They are responsible for creating jobs, for creating wealth, for producing new technologies, but they also, as we've heard, produce greenhouse gas emissions. So here in the UK, the SME sector is estimated to produce around 44% of non-household greenhouse gas emissions. So 44%, so a really big contributor to the problems that we were discussing this morning. But at the same time, SMEs would like to reform themselves, to take part in the energy transition, but 90% don't really know how, or feel so uncertainty, whether it's because of lack of resources and cash flow, perhaps it's because they don't know what the right technological solution is for solving this problem. So my challenge to the panel is how do we assist the SMEs on this energy green revolution? And SHEVAUN, I'd like to start with you. You're on the ground, as it were, talking to your members. What do they see as the main challenges to embarking on this transition? And what can the government do in terms of policy and regulation in assisting them? Thanks.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so our role in this space is to help our members move their business to net zero. But of course, there's also a huge opportunity here for SMEs in new products and services. And as an organisation, we have a very large research facility. We talk to our members every day. We run a thing called the Quarterly Economic Survey, so UK's biggest private sector survey, been running for 30 years, 5,000 businesses a quarter, Chancellor uses it, IMF, Bank of England. So we asked them also about what they're doing in this space. Could you flick up the slide for me, please? It's a little sneak preview for you all in yet unpublished data. How exciting! I know, I can feel it in the room. I mean, you're right. Exciting and a little bit concerning. So when we asked businesses about their carbon footprint, their energy consumption, or what they're doing in terms of waste, what you can see here is the blue, roughly 30, just under 30%, is yes, I am doing something. The colour in the middle is no, but I'm considering it. The rather worrying bit on the right-hand side is I haven't got any plans. I haven't got any plans to measure my carbon footprint or look at my energy consumption. That's a very large proportion. Next slide, please. A bit more encouragingly, if you ask people specifics rather than those sort of general terms, they can call out things they're doing. So the top things they're doing up here is changing to low energy lighting and recycling. I mean, you're probably doing that at home, right? Not until you really get down to EVs or solar panels is it beginning to get a bit more interesting, but it's still really only around 20%. So, not great as stats, but I think that you will recognise the reasons why. So, I would say 3 big things on the reasons why. It is there are no okay, who here, hands up, who here can measure a carbon footprint? Okay, so but I would have expected better than my normal turnout to that question, which, because I do ask it a lot, and I normally get like 2 hands. I think maybe I got, what, 10, 15 maybe? I mean, you see where I'm going with this, right? So there are no standard measures for a carbon footprint. If you go out and try, as an SME owner, try and find how to do it, there are so many places that you sort of go, God, that looks difficult. I think I might just give up. And even if I don't know how to measure a carbon footprint, I look around my 30, 40 people. Anyone else know how to cut? No? Okay. Let's get the office manager to do it. You know, so it's capability is really an issue, but also standardization, like where to go and what to measure. There just isn't a standard out there for everyone to use. So it sort of falls into the too hard box. And you know, I have the great privilege of traveling around the country, meeting the businesses of the UK and around the world. And by the way, they do, you know, talk about the challenges and this is hard and, you know, hard to find people and my costs keep rising, brackets, last week's budget, more tax increases. But you know what, SHEVAUN? I'm doing this thing over here, or I'm hiring these new people, or I'm training, I'm starting this new product, and it truly is inspirational. And I sat not this Christmas before, with an amazing group of businesses in the Northeast, and this guy said, I make a cheese, gifts of cheese to go into the big retailers, and I'm going to spend my Christmas, SHEVAUN, filling out the 60-page form for one of the very large retailers on my carbon footprint, basically.
Which, by the way, they won't respond to. He'll fill it out and they won't respond to it. I'm just saying.
And that's just one of his customers, right? So hopefully he doesn't have hundreds of 60-page documents. But you see what I'm saying on that. So that's an issue. And then the other thing is really finance. So even if I do want to go and measure my carbon footprint and then work on a plan, I'm going to have to, if I can't do it myself, I'm going to have to pay for someone to come in and help me do it. That's an investment. So what do we think we can do about that? We want to work with government, with other businesses, and try and get some standardisation in that process. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more. We have been working on that together already. But actually, on finance, what we are saying to government and to some of the big banks is, at the moment, as a chamber, we already go into businesses and help measure their carbon footprint. It costs about $2,500 to go in for a couple of days, measure your carbon footprint, and write a plan for you. Actually, then, bank, you could actually then go in and offer that organisation green finance for new solar panels, for example. And I think $2,500 is pretty low cost of acquisition for a new customer. Anna might disagree with me. So I think there are solutions, and we run accelerators for great SMEs in this space who are decarbonising. There's a lot of business support out there, but actually getting money into that real economy to finance that way forward, to accelerate that way forward, is what we need to see.
Excellent. That's a great summary. Money, money, money. And I think we should speak to the money lady.
I wish.
As Banks for Net Zero, or B4NNZ, it'd be great for you to respond to Siobhan's points there and the work that you're doing.
So money, money, money. We need carrots, carrots, carrots for SMEs. There is no question. I'm not going to talk to you all about the problems that SMEs face because I think they are understood. We've talked about it: time, resource, cost, money. I'm going to say something potentially controversial. I'm going to do it.
Please.
I don't think SMEs should report sustainability data. I don't think they should.
Unless they get paid.
I really don't think they should, because the data that we need and that the banks need, trustworthy, assurable data, in order, to Nigel's point, to innovate and move from reporting and disclosure world to innovation and opportunity world, which is all around customer acquisition and opportunity and new products, and actually being creative through their organisation about how they change the risk profiles and processes that are embedded in their organisations at the moment. In order to do that, we need trustworthy, assurable data. And SMEs have that. Most SMEs that I know will have an energy provider and a bank account and a financial reporting solution or system. We are a data-driven and technology-enabled economy, a global economy. And if we can't find ways to leverage existing infrastructure that we have to support SMEs, we are doing something very wrong. Asking SMEs to manually disclose information to every customer that they work with. I used to work in consulting services, and the amount of projects that we would run focused on supply chain engagement. Every big corporate, every financial institution running their own approach to engaging their customers and portfolios to understand their sustainability and carbon baseline, which in theory isn't even that accurate, is not a good way of doing things. So what do we need to do? We need carrots that focus on the financial and economic case for an SME to change. We do that by creating core sets of data that the market can trust, whether that is energy usage, and that can be smart meter data, that can be your billing data. And how do we share that, and what is the pipe work into the organisations and institutions that need it? And part of what we're talking about is a standard, right? A minimum standard for SMEs. We cannot exist in an ecosystem whereby it is a free-for-all and a proliferation of requests down through the supply chain to ask SMEs whether they are transitioning, what they are doing, how much they are spending. We should be pulling that information and creating an economic case for them to do the right thing. And the worst thing is, but also the best thing, it's the hope that Nigel talked about. We have the tools, we have the technology, we have the solutions to be able to do this now. What banks need to do is recognise that across their commercial mortgage books, across their loan books, there are ways of creating the market infrastructure and data pool needs across the market. From a government and policy perspective, we need to support on creating those financial incentives, which could look like tax rebates, which could look like engaging credit ratings agents. And for those organisations that are actually delivering on sustainable goals, are we looking at an impact on your credit rating? That shows to me quite good governance and risk management. Creating these connections that don't exist in the market at the moment, but are already part of our market infrastructure and our financial markets and our data flows and financial flows is where we need to focus. I'll stop there.
Absolutely.
Please.
Oh my God. Okay. Yes to everything that you've said, but let's make it a bit more tangible, right, in a perspective. So one, I don't think any of us have actually defined what an SME is, right? So for everyone in the audience and everyone that's watching us online, like a small, medium enterprise, depending on the country that you operate in, is you could be a single entrepreneur, literally earning like 5,000 or, sorry, I'm going to do this in Indian INR. I realize I should not. like $100 a month, to becoming a medium enterprise that is earning something like $5,000 to $10,000 a month. Okay, as a business, not your net income, but your turnover, and we have to understand how intensely different that is in a definition based by country and South, et cetera. So one, I have to say, I 100% agree with you that SMEs are not responsible for reporting for someone else's benefit of making themselves feel good. And let's be very clear, if you don't incentivize people to report, they should not do it. Because why would you? Like, so when you think about that disparity, now putting this in the context of the Global South, which is what I'm going to represent right now, we're talking about almost like 70 to 80 million small women businesses. Women is what I'm going to focus on. Women businesses, in India itself, it's 15.7 million women businesses today that are in that trajectory of earning $100 to like maximum $5,000 of turnover. So net income being less than $2 to maybe $100, depending on what they do, as a business operating vehicle, who has been asked, what is your net zero footprint? Who's been asked, like, what is your responsibility in terms of transition for the green economy? And the fact of the matter is that we're sitting here going, hang on, they don't even have good customers. They don't have good business. They don't have digital inclusion. They don't have the tools and capacity that they need to actually be more effective. They have no idea what green economy and transition means. They do understand climate. They do understand that every single day where they live, all of their families, friends, and communities are dealing with climate calamities that is changing the game, right? Let's be clear. The fact that Rajasthan had floods is unheard of, given that everyone thinks that it's a desert town. The fact that Spain is it's unheard of. But the fact of the matter is, that's what people understand. So I think my problem with all of this conversation is that we talk about green economy, green transition, net zero, whatever, and not understanding where people that will actually be involved in making changes need to be incentivized very differently. So do we think about better investments in building their understanding and capacity of the role and the power that they can actually play in terms of helping us think through what should be the right decisions? 2, can we understand that they're not the reasons why the world is falling apart? There are small businesses that are literally working in large masses that were never the ones that were consumption oriented that created the problem in the first place. 3rd, can we also, so therefore, instead of saying it's their responsibility because they're the masses, because they are, and it's a massive economy, let's be very clear. It's a huge opportunity, let's be very clear. Can they actually be involved in a different way to incentivize them, pay them to be a part of the solution versus pressure them to be a part of a problem they never created? And then 3rd is, can we also recognize the tools that are required to make that happen? And in the tool side, I would say, putting this in my perspective, today we have about 40,000 women businesses that are in that bracket between the 5,000 to 10,000. Today, they are literally working with over 1 million farmers. And because we work with the right partners, we've invested in their digital capability. We've invested them to collect the data that you're talking about. But we actually work with our partners, all the corporates of the world, going, please pay me to pay them to get the information that you need. And at the same time, they've also been able to then get into transitions where they are working on regenerative farming. They're bringing in clean energy solutions. They're actually helping 1 million families change behavior, which will, of course, on a carbon emission perspective or GHG or carbon footprint perspective, change the game. Who is getting a chance to benefit from this, which is really important, going back to the point of corporates, commerce, et cetera. It's the company. I today now walk into a room and go, how do I help you with your ESG goals? How do I help you with your DEI goals? Because corporates that are working globally in the global south need these people to do the work, but we need to reshift where the money comes in.
And I'd love to kind of hear if there's some sort of sandbox examples of where it has worked, both on the reporting and on the ground. Bringing back closer to home, Conduit has its own EIS impact fund, Enterprise Investment Scheme, for those who don't know it. How has that, from Eva, from your perspective, that's a government carrot, and be interesting to get your perspectives on whether that carrot is really working.
Yeah, I think it is a huge carrot. It is the envy of many nations. So thank you to the Chancellor for not touching it as the one relief of last week's budget. So the EIS, for those of you who don't know, was set up in 1994, and it's a scheme to reward private individuals for funding small businesses because it is risky. And so effectively, as of today, they get 30% back on their investment against their income tax and a number of other reliefs. And just to give a sense of the size of this carrot, about £30 billion has been invested through this scheme. And for every pound that is invested in an EIS business, it generates £2 of income. So there's your sort of GDP impact. But it also tends to result in about 6 new jobs created every time a fundraising round is done with EIS. So I think I'd love to respectfully agree and disagree with some of what's been said so far, because you're absolutely right. When we talk about SMEs, this is a huge data set. These are not apples and apples, and we shouldn't be making high demands of the one-man shop or one-woman shop, because frankly, their footprint is going to be small unless they're doing something outrageous. But what is the biggest sector of SMEs in the UK? Can anyone throw out a guess? SHEVAUN probably knows. It's construction. So some of these businesses will be 5-man and a van, and yes, carrots is the only way. You cannot put a stick. I mean, they can barely make payroll. But the bigger organizations there, that's where our emissions are coming from. So I think there are 3 big things that we need to look at if we're thinking about SMEs. Construction's going to be a big part of it. Poor guys. I mean, we need buildings, and we need them to be green. So carrots, yes. Energy, obviously, it's been mentioned several times. That is the biggest thing that most of us, even small businesses, are consuming that has an impact on our emissions. And computing, we haven't talked about this. The introduction of AI means that all these little businesses, all these knowledge-intensive companies that are, you can be 3 people in a set of computers, but it's all happening at some data lake. And so we need the Microsofts, the AWSs to double down on making sure that all of that is done in as green as possible a way. That's what's going to help SMEs be greener. Now, I do slightly disagree on the reporting element, because I think it comes down to intention. What was your business designed to do? And if you are a green business, or you are making efforts to transition to the green economy, then yes, you should report. If you're setting out to do something good, you should bloody well know how to measure it. And that's something we spend a lot of time existentially thinking about at Conduit Connect. So I want to kind of go to the other end of the spectrum just very quickly, because I know we're running out of time, and just give a couple of examples where I feel very hopeful. So we are obviously investing in the smaller side of SMEs. We're investing in these EIS businesses that in some cases have 5, 10, and now as they grow, you know, getting up to 100 employees, which is very exciting. But they all have an impact mission, even if they're education companies or healthcare businesses. And my view is that every company is a climate business. We all have a footprint. We all have an impact P&L as well as a financial P&L. And at Conduit Connect, we challenge every business, even if they are making homemade cheese, to say, well, what are your negative externalities? How do you think about that? I understand on day one, you might not be able to afford to be in the greenest building or to have the greenest source of energy, but what's your pathway to get there? In the same way that I'll ask, how do you make sure that it's an inclusive company? So we've invested in a few really exciting businesses that are absolutely at the forefront of the transition to net zero, and that are being used by large developers in the UK. So I went to a building a few weeks ago in Southwark called The Forge. I don't know if anyone's been. It was developed by Landsec, and it's a net zero building. So the whole thing has been created with this target in mind, and it's incredible. They are going to be able to charge an incredible premium to their tenants because of that gold standard. And I think there's a carrot there, you know, in terms of drivers of the economy, is that property and real estate and projects that have been done with the highest credentials are going to be worth more. So they've done this amazing thing. I'm in the elevator, I get chatting to someone. He happens to have been the person who did the development. And I said, well, we've invested in a couple of technologies that could have helped a bit, you know, in your project. And he said, well, which ones? And I said, Qflow, for example. He said, we used Qflow. And I felt, of course, very validated that we've invested in a business that had been used in this huge development. And Qflow is using data and AI to help developments manage their footprint and do things in a greener way. And because of regulation, that is now so essential that people want it and can't turn back. So that's one example. I mean, there are so many others, and I know we're running out of time, but we're working on the side of the spectrum where people are actively measuring because it's existential to what they're doing. They tend to have very low footprints in and of themselves, but they're helping people further up the chain. So EIS, yes, impactful. It is one of the financing carrots. I also think if we look at the top of the chain at SFDR, Article 6, 8, and 9 funds, that is, I suppose, a bit of a carrot and stick, but that is where, you know, coming down the capital chain, we're seeing requirements for people, yes, it can sometimes come with the penalty of needing to report, but ultimately that is how we're going to fund really interesting innovation.
I think the question, honestly, is fair. Why does a business need to be a green economy business versus not? Where are the incentives for them to, so in countries, for example, like just recently, to your point about AWS, and you're right. I mean, honestly, if you look at the global SME perspective that is now obviously all digitizing, it's a big area. So like at UNGA, we talked about the Digital Compact Agreement, and I'm an UNCTAD representative for South Asia, representing 2 billion people, which is always fun.
Be cool.
It's always fun. It's fun. 6 countries, why not? But the point is that you're right. People were asking about the role of data, AI, and servers, and the responsibility there, because everyone is now going to be on a digital system. The question I'm pushing on and asking everyone to think about is, what is the benefit? So for example, in America, if you are a social responsible business, you get a B Corp status, and therefore you get incentives. You get tax incentives, you get monitoring incentives, you get access to philanthropic money in a way that's different. In India, that's not true at all. There's no B Corp status. So in the world, as we're looking at the green economy for SMEs, my question to us is going, should I do the extra mile work? I employ right now 250 employees, and I have 40,000 women entrepreneurs. I have no incentive to be economically oriented and doing the work to be green. I want to as my own vision as a founder. However, and I've done it, obviously, that's why I'm here. But the fact of the matter is, on a scale perspective, to the point that you're making, what do you believe is the balance between responsibility versus accountability versus incentives? Is my only question. And where does the money go to make that happen?
And I think we should all be asking ourselves that question. I want to leave a few minutes for questions from the audience. So do we have any? One over to the right.
I'm a lecturer working for UCL, managing a program to teach future entrepreneurs. So I actually have one question for SMEs. I think for me, both as a teacher, also I used to also work as entrepreneurs, and most important thing or challenging for SME is we do not provide, as a society, we do not provide small and medium scale infrastructure for SMEs. And by mentioning small medium infrastructure, it's like I've been keep asking this question in international conference for all these international flights paid by governments or big conglomerations. Would those international flights be willing to donate the points to enable small-scale owners?
Yeah. So is it infrastructure to SMEs? And second question, and then we'll try and get considered responses on both questions at the same time.
Thanks very much. Ashok Sinha, CEO of Ashton Climate Solutions. So one thing I've been trying to get my head around while I've been listening to everybody is the relationship that SMEs have with other SMEs and other bodies. So, for example, if you're the local kebab shop where I live, you probably don't own your building, so you're not going to be able to put solar on it, or you're not going to be able to do a retrofit or put in a heat pump unless the landlord says that's okay. You may be a digital enterprise in some big building in the middle of London. Same things again. If you're in the construction sector, well, maybe it's your van you want to change. You want to get an electric van, but that depends on the availability, guaranteed availability of fast chargers when you need them for as much as you need. That probably means a relationship with the council to put in charging and transportation hubs and so on. So it's more complex than just the individual SME concerned. So my question really is, do you agree? Well, probably you do, but what's the policy implication of this rather than leaving it to the individual SME to sit there and go, well, I can probably access some money, but actually the changes I want to do are largely dependent on what other people are going to do to help me.
I think this is probably one for SHEVAUN, and then which we'll take. So it's improving infrastructure and how SMEs can work together. Consider it as a round, and we'll go take a response from each of the panel. SHEVAUN.
The infrastructure question is really, really tricky, and actually we've done some research that showed 30-odd% of businesses actually believe that becoming greener will make them less efficient. And the EV thing comes up a lot. So if I move my fleet to EV, where am I going to plug it in? And the bloke takes it home at the end of the night, and he lives in an apartment, so where's he going to plug it in? And actually, I'm not going to do that. So that's a massive, massive problem. And I will sort of answer both the questions with the question on support. Look, there are places that businesses need to go to be together and learn from each other. The Chamber of Commerce, for example, yay! But there are, of course, there are other places, and the incredible, advent of where AI is going will help level the playing field a little bit, I think. But actually, in the end, we know that how businesses learn best from each other, they all know this too, is peer-to-peer learning. It's going to find other people who did what you do or do something like you did and made the mistake already, so you don't have to. And actually, you might be great at baking cakes, but actually, you're probably not great at finance or HR. So come to places where we can give you business support on all of those things.
And Hannah?
Yeah, great questions. To your point on the interconnectivity in the market, it is where the role of private finance needs to step in, and actually understanding the context of those businesses and recognising the data that we know is in the market and can be shared is so important. Being creative in how we offer the right financing products and vehicles that need to be created, by the way, so any financiers in the room that are listening, we can help. That can actually ingest that information, understand the context, the size, the scale of a particular business, and offer the right financial incentives and products. That's the only way. If we're expecting an SME to recognise their context, what is within their power, what isn't within their power, the government grants, the subsidies, the products that are available in the market, actually we're just going to get complete stasis, because that is overwhelming to me saying it, yet alone an SME having to live in it, understand it, and then apply for the right financial grants or products. So what data is being shared? Do we understand the context of a particular SME, where they sit in a supply chain, what commercial properties they have, and how, in a sense, we can deploy different sustainability products, services, initiatives towards them is absolutely the answer here.
And AJAITA, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
Please.
I know it's last 5 seconds. I realize this, but I'm just going to also throw out one important role, which is social businesses, right? There are social businesses that are not really kind of sitting in this SME space, but they're larger organizations that have been globally funded by Ashton and many other organizations that have been playing a role that's shifted, which I think is really powerful. We're the intrapreneurs. Right? And we are actually taking the responsibility of connecting policy, connecting markets, and connecting civil society in a very different way to create big scale and big opportunity. So this complexity that we're all talking about, skills development, looking at trying to understand academia and the whole thing, it's a huge opportunity. And I just want to say that that's, again, where I think philanthropic capital, blended capital plays a very interesting role in building out the ability for partnerships, entrepreneurs, capacity, et cetera. So when we say money that needs to be invested towards this, let's also remember that it's not just equity, it's not just finance, it's not just standard finance. It's philanthropic money, it's CSR money, it's debt financing, it's equity, and then you build out a market opportunity for this thing to change and grow.
And I think and the Conduit is a brilliant place to meet all those sorts of capital. But I'd like to thank the panel for all their support, and I'm sorry, you switched off the lights, time to go. But thank you very much, and please give a round of applause for the